While the world was shouting sanctions, India quietly became Russia's biggest customer. And Russia in turn became India's diplomatic insurance policy. The ties between Russia and India are no ordinary. They are very special strategic partnership ties which exist between India and Russia, India and Soviet Union, India and USSR, not just now, but since 1971. Now, India and Russia or India and Soviet Union have been partners, and Soviet Union or USSR have been supporting India when no big power in the world was supporting India. We all remember the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War, where the US was completely against India, and not just against India, they were also favoring Pakistan. And that was the time which stood the test of the friendship between India and Russia or India and Soviet Union, where USSR very vigorously supported India during the 1971 war. And as Indians, we are very rooted to our culture. We never forget anyone who helped us in our misery. And which is why India and Russia since then have been very close partners, have been very, very close since then. Now recently, very famous Russian President Vladimir Putin has arrived for a 2-day state visit to India and being hosted by our Honorable Prime Minister PM Narendra Modi ji.
In receiving President Putin personally, Prime Minister Modi broke diplomatic protocol. He's not required to go to the airport, but he did. It's a gesture he reserves for India's closest friends, and it's a theme that will play out repeatedly through this visit.
We are not simply selling technology, we are sharing it. And it is a very rare thing to see in the sphere of military technical cooperation. It speaks to the level of trust between the two countries and the level of trust between the two peoples, I would put it in this way.
The countdown to Vladimir Putin's India visit has begun. The Russian president will be in India on the 4th and the 5th of December.
China has warmly welcomed the recent meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Putin.
Now, this also marks the 23rd annual summit between India and Russia in the year 2025. Now, we all know that India and Russia are strategic partners, and we became strategic partners in the year 2000. And that is where the annual summits between India and Russia started. But not just strategic partners. In 2010, India and Russia's relationship was upgraded to special and privileged strategic partner, making Russia one of the most trusted, credible, and close partner of India. And that is not all. In today's time, Russia is the single largest crude oil exporter to India, which means India imports discounted crude oil from Russia at the highest number. And also you should know that India is the 3rd largest consumer of crude oil in the whole world, which means the magnitude of what we import from Russia with respect to crude oil is humongous. And we import it at a discounted rate, which is again beneficial for the people of our country as well and for the people of Russia also. Now, while the whole world is bent on to create a divide between India and Russia's relationship can't be any stronger. The warmth with which Russian president has met with the Indian Prime Minister, the bilateral talks which we have had, the agreements which we have signed, and the things which we have reiterated, the statements which we have reiterated, the principles and values which we have followed is a testimony to the remarkable relationship between the two countries which have been there since the year 1971 and especially since the year 2000. Now, while on one hand, the US president unilaterally announced that India would no longer be buying crude oil from Russia.
And India no longer is going to be buying oil from Russia. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's a good step.
But on the other hand, when a Russian president visits India, he very clearly says that there will be uninterrupted supply of crude oil to India and no external party can do anything in this.
We are ready to continue uninterrupted shipments of fuel for the fast-growing Indian economy.
And not just this, in an interview when Russian President Vladimir Putin was asked about this particular question, that the US is not very happy when India is buying crude oil from Russia and India is being accused of funding the Russia-Ukraine war, the reply of Russian president was very important. Russian president in turn reiterated that why only India is buying crude oil? Even USA is buying a nuclear fuel from Russia, which is why not just India, but with that respect, even US would be also supporting the war. But the US is not taking its own name.
If the US has the right to buy our fuel, Why shouldn't India have the same privilege? This question deserves thorough examination, and we stand ready to discuss it, including with President Trump.
But rather than that, is accusing India of funding the war. And if we use that metric, even US should also be at fault. But US is not considering its own fault, or US is not cared about its own imports, but US is cared about imports of India, which is very clearly stating that the US in a way has shown double standards. Which is why this visit of Russian President Vladimir Putin becomes even more important for India and even more important for the West and European Union as well, because they have been hell-bent on making a divide between India and Russia possible. Hello, my name is Peetpal Singh and you're watching Perspective, and today's topic is India-Russia Special and Privileged Strategic Partnership. Now, if we talk historically, before 1991, before the disintegration of USSR, Russia was known as USSR or Soviet Union. And the relationship between USSR and India can be traced back after the independence of India in 1947. Soon after independence, India established bilateral relationship with USSR. And during the Cold War era, which lasted till 1991, India chose to go for a non-alignment, which is why India was a proponent of non-alignment and was a founder of a non-alignment movement in the world as well, where India won't be supporting either US or Russia or USSR explicitly, and would be maintaining its own neutral stance. But while this non-alignment movement is going on, in 1971, we had Bangladesh Liberation War. That is a war between India and Pakistan. Now, during that war, US supported Pakistan explicitly. And that was the time when Soviet Union showed its friendship and support towards India. And in that year itself, India and Soviet Union signed Indian-Soviet Treaty of a Peace, Friendship and Cooperation, which is a watershed movement in the alliance between India and Soviet Union, and it is a watershed movement in India's foreign policy as well. After that, USSR got disintegrated in 1991, and a lot of other countries were made. One of the major countries which was the outcome was Russia, which is one of the largest countries in the world. Now, Russia and India's relationship took to a next level in the year 2000. When Russian President Vladimir Putin visited India, and in the October of 2000, our relationship became a strategic partnership. So it was elevated to a strategic partnership in the year 2000. And that is where annual summits between India and Russia started happening. And the recent annual summit we just concluded, where a Russian president just came to India, was held in the year 2025. And that is the 23rd annual summit between India and Russia. So by the year 2000, we had a declaration of strategic partnership with Russia. But by the year 2010, that declaration of strategic partnership was again advanced to special and privileged strategic partnership. Several institutional dialogue mechanisms have been established to facilitate the ongoing interaction and cooperation at both political and official levels between both the countries. Also, not just this, in the year 2021, a 2+2 dialogue between India and Russia also initiated, which features the foreign and the defense ministers from India and Russia who will be meeting, and it added a new dimension to the bilateral cooperation and took place alongside the annual summit of India and Russia. Now, this simply shows the evolution of relationship between India and Russia. Now, if we talk about India-Russia relationship in different dimensions, let us first take economic dimension. Now, in the financial year 2023-2024, the bilateral ties or bilateral trade between India and Russia was around $65.7 billion. And both the countries have also set a target of a bilateral trade of $100 billion by the year 2030, which is definitely very much achievable. And while we talk about trade, how can we forget about the trade of crude oil and petroleum? So, since the Russia-Ukraine war, when the global supply chain is disrupted, India has been getting crude oil support or crude oil and petroleum from Russia at a discounted rate, at a cheaper rate. Now, when Russia became India's biggest supplier of crude oil, Western countries of course did not like that. Even European Union and USA and other developed countries were unhappy with this. But economically, it is saving billions of dollars of money for Indian people, which is why India will play on its own strategic interests and its own commitments and in its own values. Now, that is in relation to economic cooperation. Now, defense-related cooperation as well, India and Russia are very, very close. If you see BrahMos cruise missile program, that is also joint development between India and Russia. If you see the 5th generation fighter jet program and Sukhoi Su-30 between India and Russia, that is a remarkable testament of defense cooperation between India and Russia. Alongside this, India has acquired acquired and leased military equipments from Russia, including the S-400 defense missile system. Alongside that, T-90S Bisma again is a remarkable testament of defense cooperation between India and Russia, and also this S-400 defense system was very helpful when India combated Pakistan and retaliated against Pakistan after the Pahalgam Act of 2025, or Pahalgam Terror Act done perpetrated by Pakistan in 2025. So if we have to specifically speak, in Operation Sindoor as well, in different other arenas as well, Russia and India has been very, very close partners. And what Russian president has to say about this, that is also very important. Russian president says that this is not just mere buying or selling of some equipments which are related to defense. This is a very deep-rooted cooperation, defense cooperation between India and Russia, and between the defense systems of India and Russia, and between the defense forces of India and Russia, which makes both the countries even more closer and even more interdependent with each other. Now, defense cooperation is not all. With respect to nuclear cooperation as well, we have one Kudankulam nuclear power plant project, which is again a flagship project between India and Russia. And nuclear cooperation between India and Russia also shows how much we trust Russia as a partner and how much Russia trusts in India's ability to grow alongside using technology from Russia. Alongside this, India and Russia have a long-standing space-related cooperation history as well, whether it be the cooperation under the mission Gaganyaan, or whether it be launch of Indian satellites, that is Aryabhatta and Bhaskara-1. Cooperation in space-related aspects between India and Russia has also been very, very significant. And that is not all. You would remember that the cultural exchange between India and Russia is also very major. Indian movies were very popular in Soviet Union, and still today, Indian movies are very popular in Russia. Many actors like Devanand, Raj Kapoor, Dilip Kumar, they were tremendously popular in Russia. And today also, a lot of major actors in India are popular in Russia as well. So people-to-people exchange, cultural exchange between India and Russia is also very deep-rooted. Now, if you look at things into perspective, the bilateral relationship between India and Russia has been strong and stable since the last 78 years. Now, recently, the West has tried to meddle into the relationship. Even the European Union and US have tried to meddle in the relationship, but our relationship can't be any stronger. The visit is a testimony, the visit is a remarkable show to the world that India and Russia are very close partners, and they'll be cooperating on each and every aspect of different dimensions, whether it be space, whether it be culture, whether it be defense, whether it be economic, whether it be strategic, all the different dimensions India and Russia would be cooperating in, or whether it be science and technology as well. India and Russia will remain, they were, they are, and they will remain a strong and strategic partner for the time to come as well. And I'll conclude by saying this, that in the global geopolitics, there are no permanent friends, but India and Russia might just break this rule. I hope you gained a new perspective from this session. All the very best and have a beautiful day. Thank you.